Welcome to the Podcast Maneuver, the officially unofficial podcast for Picard on CBS All Access. I'm Jim.
I'm A.Ron.
And today we're talking about season 1, episode 6.
Oof.
We're not there yet.
We're in we slingshot around the sun. Now we're from the future.
It's called the Impossible Box. A.Ron, what'd you think of it?
Stop me if you've heard this, but there's some really good things in this television episode, and there were some really bad things in this television episode. Although I got to say that I think the lows weren't that low.
No, they
this
weren't.
Week.
I was pretty much cool with everything that happened this week.
Yeah, I will say I got a little PTSD from the guy saying, "I want to show you an old Romulan tradition," and he takes her to a shiny place with hardwood floors and says, "Remove your shoes." I'm like, this surely isn't just going to be him weeing around with her, and
but you never know with this show.
It's a Romulan labyrinth. So yeah, like I thought the stuff with Picard, dealing with the trauma about the Borg and coming, seeing them as the victims instead of like the villains or monsters. I thought that was really good. Some of the character development we got with Rios was good. The thing I thought was bad or I don't get is Jurati and Rios.
Yep. Same here.
I don't know about that, and there's a couple other things I want to talk about, but overall pretty good, and it felt like really starting to move the plot forward too. Yeah,
it really does. Now that they've sort of got the MacGuffin and they're on their way to figure out what the Romulans want with it, and like Rafi's asking all the pertinent questions in this episode, and I think things are really starting to get rolling now that we've got a crew assembled.
Yeah, and pretty smart, I think, because it opens up the story possibility, gives you some time to develop the characters, is to give, it seems like this Borg Queen teleporter is custom built to give Soji and Picard an episode to kind of like work shit out and catch her up and kind of bond while the rest of the crew has to fight their way out of a Romulan Borg installation.
Yeah, I did say it's great now that they have the crew together and they can roll. But you're right. They just teleported like 40,000 light years away, potentially.
How many episodes do we have left?
4, I think.
4? Okay. All right. Because I was thinking, I was like, man, is next week the penultimate? Because it seems like there's a lot of ground to cover. But then again,
I think it's a 10-episode season.
Then again, these things can be paced whatever they want, Like it depends on how far they want to get in season 1 and how much they want to leave for the future. But this was a pretty good Star Trek Picard episode.
Yeah, I really enjoyed seeing Picard and Hugh reunited because, man, if anybody out of all these characters has a past together, that's the pairing.
Yeah.
Because like seeing 7 of 9 come back, Picard and 7 of 9 have almost no relationship.
Right.
Like they know of each other, but Picard and Hugh, man, they have a complex history.
Yeah, and this also I would have not much trouble believing that Hugh would make huge sacrifices for Picard just because he showed up and asked. Like there's a lot of people where it's like there would be a lot of buts, but Hugh, like, the guy say and that's the thing, like you said, it's a complex relationship because it's not like Picard was like, oh, let's liberate this Borg from the beginning. He's had to be persuaded to that. So, yeah.
All right, let's get into the recap. We start off in Soji's dream. It's a stormy night. She's walking down a hall to her father's lab, and then she sort of wakes up, kind of snaps out of the dream and wakes up next to Narek, and he continues to try subtly prying information from her, but she turns it around on him when she asks his true Romulan name. Of course, he deflects. He's not going to tell her.
Yeah.
And he says that her mother might have some insight into her dreams.
Yeah, I thought it's interesting that they've invented this cultural thing. I think it is that, like, again, leaning into Romulans are just dyed-in-the-wool spies. Like, you go to school, in elementary school, and like, you fuckers are going to know my true name of power. Right. I'm going to keep that for my sweetheart and my mom and dad. Like, they're trained to keep secrets from a very young age. But I thought it was kind of a cool cultural detail, and they're both Soji knows something's up, but she's also young, and this guy's like super fucking hot and taking a lot of interest into her. So I mostly buy what's going on, and I thought it was kind of clever how they try to tease out the things she doesn't know through her artificial subconscious.
Yeah, and I like a lot of the imagery in those scenes. Those flowers, which I think are probably the ones she's named after, sort of getting in the way of her ability to see the rest of the stream and like understand who she is, and like there's this wall between her conscious and subconscious, as Narek explains it later in the episode.
Yeah.
That I think they really did a good job visually communicating.
Yeah, when we get to the vision proper, I want to talk about what we think it means and some of the stuff. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting things to analyze there for sure.
I gotta say, if I'm in Starfleet or I'm on the artifact, these quarters got to be arranged differently. You cannot have quarters that open from the grand hall right onto your bed. Like literally the doors open, boom, there's your bed.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can put a desk in front of it, but it's not shielding anything.
Yeah.
I want that door offset. Yeah. I want the door offset and my bed offset the other direction.
You need a vestibule or a foyer.
Yeah, I don't want to wake up and see somebody staring at me.
Mm-hmm. No, you don't want that. If you don't want to feel like making your bed, you don't want to advertise that to the world.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
My bed's a mess constantly.
But it's the artifact. This isn't a luxury liner.
No, those Borg don't give a shit.
No.
How messy your bedroom is. All right, we're on board La Sirena, where Jurati explains how Bruce Maddox died of his injuries. Of course, we know that's a lie.
And we're not going to be treated to the barest subterfuge. Did Agnes hack the hologram? The show doesn't care. The show didn't even think of that. So she's just going to tell a very compelling story about how he just suffered too much damage. Took a living patient who was able to walk in the 24th century medicine bay, and he just too much damage.
Yeah.
So much damage.
Holodoc doesn't give a shit to check the logs.
Nope.
Not going to look at the readouts at all.
Nope.
Okay, no problem.
Right.
So the conversation turns to Soji's location, and Picard explains his past relationship with the Borg, and he's very obviously still got this chip on his shoulder. Or I don't even know if that's the right word. He's got a lot of baggage from that experience. Yeah.
Traumatic. Shit. They don't have to do much to convince me that being Borgified is a fucking horrific thing to go through. And getting voluntarily setting foot on a deactivated Borg ship has got to be like the scariest fucking thing.
Yeah. There's also in this scene a moment where Elnor realizes that Jurati is hiding something and lying. And I felt like this was weird because typically Picard is very emotionally observant. He's able to, like, when he sees somebody who is going through something or not giving all of the information to him, he can sort of suss that out and just at least prod around the edges and know that something is up. But he doesn't do any of that here.
I think that there's two problems. Number one, Jurati's playing it like she's not really that upset.
Mm-hmm.
When she had the out where she could have just explained to her and Bruce Maddox were very, very close, and then she could be explained distant, weird, kind of standoffish behavior. But I think she's doing a pretty good job of just portraying like, what big deal. Also, do you get better at detecting lies and falsehood the more you're exposed to them, or do you get worse?
Right.
Because Elnor, I mean, maybe he has lived with these Romulan nuns that practice this way of absolute candor, and he's like fine-tuned into any aberration from that absolute honesty.
I would think it would be the opposite.
But I think so too. Like, you're usually bad at things you're not used to doing. You have no experience doing, like sussing out lies, figuring out when, because certainly Elnor here is struggling to understand things, like when he's in-butting and out-butting.
I mean, he's so unfamiliar with lies that when a lie happens, when they're going down to the planet, going down to Stardust City, he's like, oh, this is a lie. I've heard about these.
Yeah.
This guy is not going to be more emotionally and more perceptive than Picard.
No.
He's a diplomat, for God's sake. He's used to seeing lies on every scale. Like, this struck me as like a really wrong character note.
But it is something like they're going to make him like the bloodhound of like deep-seated hidden things, and Picard's going to need.
But you can't have it both ways, right? You can't say on one hand, oh, it's a guy who gets so excited about the possibility of a lie that he loses his shit, and then also say that he's super perceptive about lying.
Yeah. I also like how there's a little bit odd pacing where like Picard is talking about all of the reasons he doesn't want to go to the Borg cube, and then Agnes starts up this like, if again you haven't been paying attention the last 3 weeks, I want to talk about Picard and him being Locutus and being on the Borg, and it's in universe it serves as an audience explanation reminder, but we've had like 3 of those in a row, 3 weeks running.
Yeah,
and in universe she's just like, hey, I want to take about 30 seconds to trigger the fuck out of you. Like it feels. I don't know. I wish they had her have that line at the start of the conversation, just, maybe as an aside to Elnor. I don't know. But, like, the way it hit, it's like Picard was already kind of like, oh, scared of Borg. And she's like, no offense, but blah. He's a Borg. He's like, cute as a Borg. We learned all about it.
Yeah.
You were emasculated on a galactic stage. Everything was taken from you,
I think it was a little more than that.
I mean, yeah.
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 Emasculated and turned into an alien cognition. It's a very strange thing.
That's why Picard never actually had kids. Part of Borgification is transformed into a kin doll.
Oh yeah, just shaved right off.
You get a universal genital port that takes care of elimination, and that's it. That's it.
Yeah, they gave him an option. We can rebuild your face perfectly.
Yeah.
Or we can rebuild your genitals, Picard. Which one do you want?
And also on the board, I'm
not going to need those.
On the artifact, they're not able to do. That's why everyone's face is so fucked up. They went for the full genital reconstruction.
The genital option. Yeah. They checked that box.
Yeah, your left eyes is going to be a flesh-colored pit, but you will have a functional penis and/or vulva.
All right, let's move on. Where Picard's retreating to his hollow study, where he calms himself while becoming familiar with the artifact and the politics around it. And he notices that Hugh is now working at the artifact and is really disturbed to see an image of himself as a Borg.
Dude, I kind of was upset that they wasted this kind of cool camera shot on Soji and the Romulan woman, because that was really fucking eerie and effective. Like seeing like that overlay onto the actual Picard and him kind of lose his shit about it.
And I love how he's like touching that side of his face, like the mental hardware is still there, but the physical is gone.
He's got phantom bionic pains or something.
Yeah, no, it was really good.
It is cool. I really liked it. Kudos to whoever set that up.
Mm-hmm. And then we go to the Beta Quadrant. Well, we're in the Beta Quadrant rather. I don't know why they take this opportunity to tell us that, because I assume we've been in the Beta Quadrant for a long time now, but maybe not. So Jurati asks Rios why he likes the harsh environment of space, and seeing what's bothering her, he offers to talk about Maddox. Instead of talking, she kisses him, and she realizes, oops, this is a mistake, and confesses that she's hollow, hopeless, lonely, and afraid, which I guess Rio goes for.
Is that hollow, he's probably hopeless, like a simulation of being hopeless? She's
hollow, hopeless, yeah. And then she goes right back in for another kiss, which leads them into bed together.
Yeah, so what the fuck?
Where did this come from?
Is this just her trying to ingratiate herself into a member of the crew so that she can do more dastardly things later? Or is it I
think she doesn't know how to process the stuff with Bruce Maddox. And I feel that, but like, she knows what's going on here. Rios knows that this is a very weird
they're all talking about this is a bad idea. It's a bad idea. You're not going to do it. But you're hot, so we're going to do it.
Yeah. She's really getting her money's worth on this trip, though. She says, you can distract me for a few hours.
That's why
this is not one round and done. This is a championship fight here.
Yeah.
Going the full 10.
Yeah, I don't that's she's assuming a lot about Rios. You know, he's a starship captain with scars on his body, and he's good at soccer, and he's
probably got the cardio for it.
He looks like he should be good in bed, so we'll see.
We'll see.
It'd just be funny if it said like 3 minutes later, and they're walking out of quarters and kind of looking flustered, and like there's something between them. That tension.
There is a tension
that Elnor's going to sniff out.
Then we go to Rizzo and Narek. Narek explains that Soji's dreams are a sign of his progress, believing that Soji's two halves, her conscious and unconscious, are trying to work themselves out. And he demonstrates the patience of his technique to Rizzo with this puzzle box, or called the impossible box, I guess. That seems to convince her again temporarily.
Yeah, solving a Romulus cube. Man, I don't understand why we need this character every fucking week to come in and taunt Narek and talk shit. It's very Power Rangers. Like these remind me of those, like the Rita Repulsa scenes in the beginning where she's got a brand new plan to get the Power Rangers, and her sub-lieutenants talk shit about it, and then it's just wash, rinse, repeat. Like,
this
show
is guilty of that a lot. Like this show will give us information, and then in later scenes give the characters that same information several times, because there are a lot of characters.
Yeah, and
it's kind of redundant and boring to me as an audience member.
Yeah. But especially since she's just going to, again, I think they fucked up by having her shit. They needed the one sister to be killed in a botched assassination attempt, but that completely cuts the legs out from his sister Rizzo. That, you know, she's already tried her way and fucked it up. Like, fucked it up in a way that can't be unfucked. Like, you can't undisintegrate an android and interrogate it. So, this constant, like, coming in here and twirling her non-existent mustache and being like, you better get it solved at some arbitrary deadline or I'm going to take over and do it my way. Like, it's just a joke. It's a joke. And she's bad at it. And then they lay on all the Lannister bullshit and all this other edgy, like how edgy, you know, how edgy can we get in Star Trek kind of thing. And I don't like it.
I really like the analogy of the box. I think that was solid. But yeah, you're right. It was so redundant at this point.
Yeah.
What they needed to do is have her maybe just traveling for the last few episodes to get to the artifact.
Right.
And if we had like the scene where she did the hollow call to him and said, hey, I'm coming out there. And then we had this scene as the next time we saw her. Yeah. That would work really well.
Because it's been a couple weeks and he's been fucking around with the Borg ice skating rink.
And then the deadline isn't as arbitrary because now she's shown up and time has passed. And like that could have worked really well.
Yeah, the pacing's weird. Also, I just want to note as a programmer that when he says every piece of synthetic design has a purpose, that's bullshit. Like, it ignores the whole idea of emergent qualities and capabilities that happen because of complex. In fact, he even says it like these dreams are what is the conflict between her conscious and subconscious realization that she's an android, but she thinks she's real, and it just does because it doesn't know. Like, well, were dreams designed that way, or is this an emergent process? Like, you know, but he's using that as like, well, it's designed to be this way, so all of her hidden data is going to be here. It's like, I don't know, or it could just be some weird thing that an artificial intelligence that's very complicated, as complicated as Soji, just starts happening, you know?
Yeah, I mean, we have artificial intelligences that are far less complicated.
Yeah, adaptive AI.
And we don't totally understand them either.
But that's, I think, the other thing is like they're kind of a slave to the technological understanding of artificial life back from the 80s Star Trek series. Because, you know, Data, you know, had a subroutine he created for dreaming. He never just like had like a breakthrough.
Right.
His neural net never just achieved sufficient complexity to like, oh, I can understand subtlety and nuance and fucking contractions. It was like, well, I wasn't programmed to handle them, so fuck me, I guess.
But I am programmed to write my own subroutines, but I'm not writing the subroutine that let me says can't.
Right.
Why the fuck not, Data?
I don't know. It's weird, but you know, it sounds good to the layman, and it lets you do this sick, you know, Romulus cube thing with the ballerina in it.
Yep.
And later, do Romulans have ballerinas?
Apparently, yeah.
Because that's a Romulan toy, and it's loaded with, I think, a Romulan prize.
Seems like you can load it with whatever you want.
Maybe.
So maybe this is like some other culture's artifact.
Why would it be like? I would think, if anything, I don't know. Then he uses it to deliver a radioactive neurotoxin later. I don't know.
Yeah.
I hate Rizzo. I hope she gets blown out of an airlock after this season.
She might. So Rios asks Picard how they're going to get on the artifact, and Picard believes that absolute candor is the way to get on board, planning to get the Federation to give Rafi a pass for him to speak with Hugh, is what it boils down to.
This, are we talking about the scene where Rafi actually does it?
Let me recap that real quick.
Okay.
So Rafi calls up some captain, I'm not sure.
Emmy. Captain Emmy.
Emmy?
I think that's her name. Yeah, that's what she called her.
No, she's a good actor. And asks for her diplomatic credentials for Picard. She's going to get turned down until she says, oh, we're already on our way. And it would look bad for the Federation if this wasn't official. So they get 24 hours.
And what I thought was wild is Picard applauding this. What Rafi did was burn a long-term friendship to the ground.
Yeah.
She cashed in every favor and every emotional bond to get Picard this thing. And he applauds it with this stupid grin on his face like, I don't know. This Picard's kind of a monster sometimes.
It's because that was her last hit of Snake Leaf. And so now she's off the juice.
That's the other thing is like, yeah, just her taking that long drag of the Snake Leaf.
And then like she's hitching up in her speech and like,
yeah,
it goes right to the bottle afterward. Like I never got the impression that she was a full on like addict in the moment.
I don't think the writers did either, but they thought that would be a good idea when she met her son.
Well, that's the thing, right? Her son, this experience with her son drove her to it.
Yeah.
She tried to do this half-assed reconciliation, and it didn't work, and now she's off the deep end.
But yeah, like Picard's plotting her destruction of her friend circle, her relapse into addiction. Like, what the hell, Picard?
That's his rampaging id.
Why is the socially stunted Romulan able to see all this stuff, and you're completely blind to it?
Yeah,
he's got a hard on for the Borg.
What's with the music in this scene? Man, all right. Jeff Russo has done some he's done some good work and he's done some bad work. And this, in my opinion, is the worst of his work in Star Trek Picard. I think the main theme is weak and just a nothing of a song.
I couldn't hum it right now. I've heard it like 6-7 times.
Same with Disco. He also did that one. Both of those are just garbage themes. This scene has like this weird Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairies tone to it. I don't know what to say about the music in this scene. It just did not strike me as
I think he's going for like an Ocean's 11 heist kind of like, that type of thing.
That's not really the tone I was getting from this scene.
Yeah, no, I kind of agree with you. There's hardly any music that stands out.
Some of it's good. Like I like a lot of the stuff that happens on the Borg ship.
Oh yeah, it's more of like just industrial ambient. Because again, I don't even recognize. I don't even realize there's music in the show.
Well, that's the thing. Like it blends in so much better. But after this scene, I was looking for it, and I was like, okay, the Borg stuff is actually good. This, oof. No, thank you.
Also, I have a lot of questions about the Romulans because I'm simultaneously supposed to understand that their one planet where a large portions of Romulus was evacuated to is a lawless, unpatrolled hellscape that's fought over by warlords and Batman-type space rangers. But the neutral zone still has teeth, and they preside over this large empire that, what? Like, can they patrol their space or can't they? Can they control their borders or can't they? Do they care about protecting Romulans or don't they?
I haven't thought about it much.
They have an intact Secret Service and super duper Secret Service and are funding this extensive research operation to the Borg, but they also can't promote law and order within their own borders. Like, what the fuck?
I get the impression, I don't know if it's ever been said, but my headcanon here is that the Romulans were sort of given the Borg cube as like your planet your system blew up, so like let's give you
need to win
this. Because
you think so? Because I felt like the what they're trying to tell the story is the Romulans took the Borg out themselves by letting this small stealth ship get assimilated and upload some kind of payload to them. So like, that's the spoils of war then, and it seems like it's
in the neutral zone. So
is
like,
it in or past the neutral zone? I thought it was like in Romulan space.
When they pull up to it, it says Beta Quadrant neutral former neutral zone. So like
former neutral zone.
Right,
what the fuck is that? Anymore. Why are we talking about the neutral zone? This show is lying to me. It either exists and it's a thing, or it's a former thing, which means it does. Like, what the fuck?
It's a former thing, but now I think it's patrolled like loosely by the Fenris Rangers, but also there are factions out there that are dangerous because the Fenris Rangers aren't that strong.
Captain Rio said, I hope you have a plan to violate this treaty, which that's what established the neutral zone. But it's like weird. It'd be like if I was driving to what used to be East Berlin and I'm approaching a former, checkpoints, and it's empty. It's just a tourist attraction now. Like, to be sweating about like, I hope you have a plan to get past this checkpoint. Like, no, I don't. I'm just going to drive through it. It doesn't exist anymore. But
I missed it. Maybe some of our listeners can tell us what's up with that. Cause
it's weird. It reminded me a lot of like the politics of the new Star Wars movies. Like,
oh yeah,
like the First Order is a imperial insurgency that also in between movies
spawned out of the ruins of the Empire that was totally shattered and defeated, but now is stronger than ever.
Yeah, and now the Republic only has their resistance now. They have one ship left. Like, what the fuck happened?
How did that happen?
Like, Leia must be the worst galactic ruler in history. She just drove that thing off a cliff.
She said, we did it, everybody. Yeah. Just head home.
Yeah. I'm just going to start punching out Jedi kids with Han and just check out.
They had a gun return program where everybody just returned all their lightsabers, all their guns. They're
a blaster buyback program.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
And they melted them down. They turned them into
bankrupted Republic. There was like 10 quintillion blaster rifles they had to buy back, and they just...
totally
didn't have it.
Dismantle every ship except one to pay for it. Anyway, Soji tells Narek that she tried to talk to her mother about the dreams, but she fell asleep. And he says the log shows that her calls to her mother are exactly 70 seconds every day.
Weird, huh?
There's some weird shit going on here because, okay, first of all, how does he really know about these calls with her mother? Because they're not calls. They're simply AI subroutines running in her mind, whatever she has, not a positronic matrix, probably.
See, I never considered the idea that they're not actually phone calls, that they're like all
I assume they're
happening
not
in
because
her
the mother
head.
AI is in her head, right? So, like, she wouldn't be calling out anywhere.
Maybe it is some. I mean, I don't know. Do you want me to openly speculate?
Yeah, go for it.
Because maybe it's like one of those things where she's not going to be in contact with Bruce Maddox, but like if she phones home once a day to talk to mom, that's actually an external interface where they're passing some kind of data and he can monitor that way. And now Bruce Maddox is dead. Maybe that's why they're only lasting 70 seconds. Like the mother has nothing to say, so it's like, oh, go to sleep, chink, turn it off.
I thought the mother was essentially a way to shut her down, like. And I don't mean physically, I mean like mentally, to keep that cage around her conscious and subconscious.
Yeah, it's weird because like she knows she talks to her mom every day, but like when he asks her like, what do you talk about? She kind of like has one of those where, oh God, maybe what do I talk to her about? Like they implant in her the idea they have these conversations, but they don't actually have them. There's like these holes in her. Yeah,
which makes me wonder how the hell Narek would know anything about them, which says he has a lot more information about her than we know.
I mean, that her room's wired for sound. And video.
You know, I never considered that fact. She could just be.
She's on a Romulan ship. I think that's just. It's like, going to stay in Russia in the 80s. Like, just assume everything's bugged, everything's a camera.
Okay,
that makes the way it works.
Sense. And then Rios tucks Rafi into bed, and she tells him about her son, and then passes out. I like this line at the end, no one gets all of it right, Raf, which is so true.
It is true.
Everybody's got their regrets and mistakes.
But, some people aren't fighting a raving snake leaf addiction on top of a conspiracy theory involving the highest levels of Romulan secret police that
and I think she's
ultimately drove a wedge to her family and flew them all apart.
And I think she's just guzzling Johnny Walker Black in this scene. It just looked like a straight Johnny Black bottle to me, but maybe I just wasn't paying attention.
Snaky Walker bite is what she's saying.
Jesus.
She's smoking the leaf. She's drinking the juice. It's just getting it from both sides.
So Soji then calls her mother to talk about this dream that she had, but she falls asleep even though it's the middle of the day. And it
seems like she has some kind of ability to fight the impulse. Like she's trying to like, no, damn it, I don't want to go to sleep, Mom. And she ignores like 2 or 3 suggestions to do it, but ultimately, the mom just keeps upping the brandy she puts in the bottle until the baby goes to sleep.
And then we go over to Picard having flashbacks when he sees the artifact, and he's the only one who can legally board it. So he tells everyone, including specifically Elnor, to stay behind on Rio's ship. Then Soji awakes and searches her belongings for every single picture of her family. She scans them and finds out that everything from her childhood is only about 37 months old. So is her necklace, and she freaks the fuck out.
I think that does something useful to tell us exactly how long this timeline is. Like she's been
roughly
on
3 years.
The Romulan ship for just over 3 years, and I think that's a fact. Like she's physically been occupying the space for that long.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
And do you think that's as long as she's been alive at this point?
That's a good question, and I think I want to save it for when we talk about the dream, because I've got some things, because the dream, let's wait till we get to talk about that.
Okay. I did want to point out an Easter egg in this scene that I wasn't aware of, but I took note of it because I always take note of these things. There's a lunchbox she pulls out that says Adventures of Flaughter on the front, and this is apparently a Voyager reference.
Oh, really?
There was an episode called Once Upon a Time, season 5, episode 5, where the Adventures of Flaughter is sort of a series of children's hollow stories. That one of the crew, or one of the passengers, let's say, on Voyager, Naomi Wildman, kind of runs through. And everyone seems familiar with him. Like Harry Kim's a fan, even Janeway's a fan.
See, that's cool. I like it when they actually invent some kind of pop culture that's happened in the last 400 years
like
instead of going back to Sir Arthur Conan Doyle all the fucking time.
Right.
It's Bach and
Shakespeare
Doyle
and yeah.
Yeah, it's a bunch of great expectations, and what happened after the 20th century, who the fuck knows?
It's like the Misko and Morisco stuff they do in The Expanse. I really appreciate that. Like, they don't ever go into it, but like...
Yeah, it makes the world feel bigger and more real.
It does, yeah. And then Picard enters the artifact while enduring horrific flashbacks, and Hugh shows up and offers his help in any way Picard needs it. So he walks him through the artifact, trying to put him at ease about being on a Borg cube again, and Picard tells Hugh why he's here, and Hugh knows exactly who he's talking about, so he takes him to Soji.
I thought that was a really effectively done scene where Picard, I don't know why Hugh did this to him. I don't know why he can't just be at the coordinates that he's going to beam in and be like, hey, welcome to the ship.
Right.
But him like stumbling around, getting triggered by seeing all this Borg technology, and then these Borg swarming him, but then realizing that they just don't want him to fall because, you know, he looks like he's about to take a header off of this infinite drop.
It's one of those like Matrix, would you have broken the vase if I didn't say anything kind of moments, right? If the Borg didn't come lunging at you, would you have been so disoriented you were going to fall?
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
They like all tackle him, hold him to the ground, and
right,
you know, stick their implants in his face. They're just trying to protect you. They're just trying to protect you. They don't know how to talk. Their vocal cords are gone because they opted for the full penile reconstruction. It's a fatal flaw with these XBs. They're just you know, really fucking tied up with their external genitalia.
I like this line from Hugh. This says so much about their very complicated history, where at the end he says a new name can be the first step toward a new identity. I learned that on the Enterprise. Yeah, he took a journey on the Enterprise too.
Yeah. Have you seen this iBorg episode?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw it recently.
All right, that's what I was wondering, because like his name, I thought that was just funny because the way I recall it, his name Hugh is because he misunderstood you.
Yep.
So it's kind of ironic there too, because the name that he took so much personal meaning and identity from was like an accidental bestowment.
Right. Yeah. It was. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how much we want to talk about Hugh and Picard's relationship, because there is quite a bit of it. Like, if you want to watch that iBorg episode, it's basically self-contained in that episode.
Yeah.
So there's not, you know, a whole series.
But the premise is that Picard wanted to see the Borg as irredeemably evil.
Yeah.
Like, you know, didn't want to think about, and it's something he still struggles with and up to the movie's timeline too. Seems like this timeline as well. And he like forcefully, like, normally Picard doesn't try to put his thumb on the scales to try and investigations he's doing, but like I thought it did a good job that he tried to set Hugh up to fail. Like, you know, wanted to prove that this person is not an individual, that it's still enslaved to the Borg, that would still, you know, destroy them all if given a chance. And like Hugh just act confused and hurt by the line of questioning rather than Borgie.
Yeah, so, I mean, and Hugh was sort of a patient zero for a virus that was going to destroy the Borg.
Yeah. And I think that's why Picard wanted to believe that they're irredeemable, because there's no moral quandary there.
Right.
If these things are irreversibly Borg and there's no individual left there, then, you know, is it even really a war crime to unleash a bioweapon upon that?
Yeah, he's essentially the same. So Voyager did a lot of things the TNG did.
Yeah.
And he's essentially the same as that Icheb character.
Right.
As far as like that asset or that aspect of his personality, or his beinghood, I guess. But the thing about it was like he came from, you know, the collective, and over the course of that episode, he sort of de-integrates from that collective, that idea of like, you know, I am Borg.
Yeah.
We are Borg, that sort of thing. That there is no I, there's just a we. Into like identifying as like this name, Hugh, as an individual, and then Picard sends him back into the Borg collective, not with the patient zero virus that would kill them all, but with his newfound identity. And I think that has an effect on the Borg. I think there are future episodes where like that has changed the nature
like
of the Borg.
That faction of the Borg that got infected with that individuality is what like lore into like trying to lead as a faction.
Right. Yeah. So I guess there are 2 episodes you can watch if you really want the full story. But yeah, it was a journey of, you know, self rediscovery, which was I think why this line worked so well for me about this new name.
Mm-hmm.
And then we go to Soji showing Narek what she's discovered. Narek suggests that someone could have altered her memories to use her for their purpose on the artifact.
Oh my goodness. What if you're being used, Soji, for some larger purpose? Oh my God, that'd be terrible.
Have you slept with anyone weird lately? Other than me. He offers her a way to help understand her memories, which is a traditional Romulan practice. They slide on the floor in their socks. Right?
I swear, the way he introduced this is identical to the ancient Borg ritual shit.
They have to know that in the writer's room, don't they?
I think they don't know a lot in the writer's room.
Yeah. That's unfortunate. But yeah, that was all I was thinking in this scene was, oh my God, we're getting another one of those.
You know what would have been, they should have, because if they were aware of it, the way to go would be for Soji to say something like, this isn't going to be us sliding around in socks again. You know, just be a little self-aware. But instead, because they've also established her as an expert in Romulan culture, she immediately knows, oh, this is the Zal Makan stuff I've always read about. Isn't it taboo?
Yeah, I don't understand what's so taboo about this.
Yeah.
This technique.
Also, I wonder if he's used that line with her in any other endeavor. Isn't that taboo? Which is why we should try it.
Oh, boy.
Oh, gee. Narek, you dirty dog.
Dirty, dirty dog. Then Picard has shown the de-assimilation efforts, and he's impressed with what they've done. Hugh paints a pretty dystopian picture of the XP's life under the Romulans, hoping Picard can advocate for the freedom of the XPs. That's kind of the whole scene.
They're effectively, they're either prisoners or kept on this as a reservation for export, but they're not allowed to pursue any kind of individuality. And yet it's, there's a couple of pretty touching scenes for as far as they go, like the Borg being pleased with their reconstructive surgery and like slowly regaining some of their, I guess humanity wouldn't be the right word, whatever their sentience, because they're not humans, the majority of them.
Did they go into why the Romulans are de-assimilating the Borg in this series? Why they're not just killing them?
No, I think it's because that this is some kind of like, there might be Federation oversight or at least support, and like that's why Hugh is there. Like Hugh's there, he's the humanitarian reason.
Okay, they're not allowed to kill him.
But like what the Romulans are really after is probably technological advantages and things like that. But he's the this is like very Cold War 101. Like what's your peaceful intent, so then you can cover your warmongering actual intent.
Right.
That's what but they haven't really spelled it out, and they haven't spelled it out like why he has. Because it seems like he has an immense amount of power over what's going on there, but also that he's on thin ice. Mm-hmm. Like, because a couple times, like, relatively low-ranking members, like, challenge him on things, and he gets, like, chesty with them, and they back down. But, like, if he was really this long-term, like, well-respected, I don't think he would have to, like, do that as much. So I feel very scared for Hugh. Like, at the end of this episode, I'm thinking, like, Hugh might not live to see another day, especially if the Zot Vot Zip Zoc have anything to say about it. The Zot Vash, what is there?
Zot Vash. Yeah, okay. All right, then Rios wakes up Rafi to collect on his bet that Soji is still alive, and Rafi can't understand why they would keep her alive, especially because she's a synth. And she asks a pertinent question here: what does the Tal Shiar need from a synth? Like, we kind of know. Do you think Rafi has figured it out, though?
If she did, and she didn't tell Picard, then she's really bad intelligence officer, because it's.
Well, I think she might have just figured out in this scene, and she doesn't have really an opportunity to tell Picard.
Really? Because I thought they talk like but maybe they're doing that tropey thing of like there's no time, because Picard no times Hugh like 2 or 3 times in this episode.
Yeah,
like well, why do you want this? Like, there's no time to explain. It's like, come on, there's like. You're walking probably a couple kilometers on this Borg installation. Mm-hmm. What are you talking about? Like, you can't explain.
He's flashing back to the horrors of being Locutus.
That's true.
So they legitimately had no time to talk.
Yeah, he's just weeping and shaking as he's going through the hallways.
Every second that he's not actively distracted, he's flashing back to horrors.
Like as soon as the camera right before the camera turns on, he just wipes his face with a hanky, and then he's ready to go.
Yeah. So then Narek takes Soji to a room with a bunch of lanterns where they take off their boots and slide across the floor in their socks. Actually, no. Narek tells her his true name, which I think is just crayon in French. Which Picard's going to find that really ridiculous.
Yeah, that's not his true name. Crayola, what?
Crayola. That's really? Okay. Yeah, they begin their journey
That's
into
a Southern
her dreams.
cooking style. Crayola, come on. I've had crawdad. I've had a crawdad boil. You can't fool me.
Narek coaches her through the dream, opening up details she's never noticed before, and then she snaps out of the dream when her father calls her name, and Narek says it's her subconscious trying to keep her out. So she tries again.
It's interesting. They do this. This is a combination like labyrinth, like that's where you walk on a floor and you meditate, and like guided meditation and
like a hypnosis sort of thing.
Yeah, hypnosis and like repressed memories. Like they're throwing a whole bunch of different techniques, which I think are mutually incompatible. Like
maybe I liked it. I thought it was pretty effective.
I thought the only thing that's weird is like her just like how fast she was moving down. He's like, all right, you're about to make the turn into like, I don't know. I think they could have slowed down and spent more time making it a ritual, because to me it was pretty easy to see through the artificiality of it. But I don't know. That's just me.
Okay. We'll get to the real meat of that here in a second. But Picard, in the meantime, arrives at Soji's quarters and sees the mess she's made. And he realizes she's close to discovering her identity, but they can't find her on the cube. The artifact, excuse me. So Soji continues with the dream with a blurry-faced father. She sees herself as a wooden dummy on a table, and she sees also 2 red moons and lightning in the sky above, which Narek says is her home, and that she's not real. Finally, he says goodbye and tries to kill her with the puzzle box, but she activates and bashes her way through the floor to escape.
Convenient that he doesn't use one of the rapid disintegration kills that we know the Romulan Secret Service people are capable of. Like, that could have been like a spray bottle of that green shit and she'd have been done.
Oh yeah.
It's very James Bond, but so one of the big questions I have is, how many worlds do you think are going to fit this model? Because if it's one, then it's pretty much we got a beeline till the end of the season. But I wonder if there's going to be like 3 or 4 possible locations, and it's going to be a race. Like now that Picard's got her and he's got an episode to bond with her, it's going to be like the Nazis. They got the head of the staff burnt on the one dude's hand, but they don't know that they have to take 6 inches back to give to God or some shit. So Picard's going to know like a much narrower search window, and Lieutenant Rizzo is going to take her ears off and be going around trying to find one by one the planets. You think that's going to happen, or what's it feel like to you?
Yeah, it could be. I mean, I think that's a pretty given the number of star systems out there, it's a pretty non-specific thing. 2 red moons and lightning. Yeah. Like electrical storms, right? That I have to imagine happens in a lot of places.
And it doesn't even have to be a Class M planet, because it's a completely enclosed facility. It could be.
Right, yeah.
What do you think the Soji actually saw in the dream? Like, what do you think that's a real experience she had, or is this?
Oh, no, I think this is. I don't think it's real. Like, I don't think she ever was a wooden dummy on a table. Like, that's not a real thing.
See, I thought it could have been real, that she was. This is like before 3 years and a month ago, where her sister is being assembled in a laboratory and she accidentally saw something she wasn't supposed to see. She wasn't a girl or anything like that. Like, a lot of these obviously details, and she didn't look like a wooden, but that's just kind of how she processed it. Yeah, because it's all through this layer of android dream, which is also weird. Because that's what I was trying to think, is like, well, is this a repressed memory, or is this just, like he said, her subconscious dealing with the cognitive dissonance?
Yeah.
And if it's the latter, I'm not sure anything is actionable. Like, just because you can look up and see through a skylight, like that seems to imply that this is a real location and a real memory. Yeah, she wasn't ever a little girl, was she?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
At least not by my understanding of it.
So, but I don't know. Like, is she... Because they talk about it being synthetic life. Does that mean, is she synthetic like Data? Like, you could take her arm off? Because when she got that green shit, her sister got that green shit thrown on her. It looked like she was dissolving organically. And I guess
they make a point that she's flesh and bone, right? She's not... I don't think she has like a positronic matrix. I think she's some other... Construction is probably not even the right word.
Well, it's like in Westworld, you've got the old school robots that were like erector sets with synthetic flesh over them, and then the new school robots are like molecular assembled the humans.
They're grown, essentially.
But they have like CPU, they have like their brains replaced by CPUs and whatnot
right.
And whatnot instead of like brains. And so I wonder if you're supposed to understand she's kind of like one of those late model Cylons that are like indistinguishable from a human body.
That's what I'm assuming, but I don't know that for a fact yet.
Yeah, me either. And I always question when you have a robot that's like indistinguishable from human, like from an advanced 24th century medical scan. Like, so where does their superpowers come from? Because like she's beyond peak human ability. So like if her tendons are made out of like trilithium titanium mesh, then guess what? She's not going to pass as human on a sensor.
Yeah.
But
for bones are 8 times denser than human beings. Yeah.
Like data makes sense. Like, you know, you can take data apart. Like no doctor's going to do a scan of data and be like, what the fuck? I thought this is a human body. So I don't know. They seem like they have their cake and eat it too.
I also wonder why Narek decides in this moment that he needs to kill her. Cause like telling her that that's her home.
Yeah.
You could use that to extract so much more information about the location from her.
Very premature.
Extremely.
And you could pivot it to like, instead of her, like, she's like, like, I want to know the answer. He could have been like, you know, this is the first step. We got a lot of work, like, but you don't want to push too far and continue the entire, I don't know. Maybe
I thought that's what he was doing.
Sister's impatience finally got to him.
Yeah. The impatience of the sister got to the patient one. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have questions about how highly irradiated is she now, and will that be an issue in the future?
Yeah.
This radiation is designed to murder someone in a matter of seconds.
Sure, yeah.
It's got to be intense.
Yeah.
They drop down right in front of Picard.
Yeah, and I get that she got out of it, but she got a good whiff of that stuff. And but you know, don't worry.
I don't think it's ever going to be mentioned again. But
I think in between episodes that Dr. Agnes is going to hack her nanobot radiation mist and is going to deactivate it. Don't worry about it.
Okay, cool.
Don't worry about it. Won't be shown. Won't be alluded to.
Okay.
That's what happens.
Headcanon. And then finally Picard realizes Soji has been activated when she comes back on the grid and then drops through the ceiling right in front of him. And he shows her the necklace and offers help. The Romulans show up and Hugh guides Picard and Soji to a spatial trajector in the Queen's cell. And Picard tells Rafi to meet him at Nepenthe.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know. It was hard to tell what they were saying. I just wrote it down.
Nepenthe.
And then Elnor shows up on the cube to save him. Elnor covers their exit as Picard and Soji leave.
It's badass, except for okay, I didn't have a problem with them finding Soji dropping in front of her because they were actively tracking her.
Yeah.
How the fuck did Elnor know where to go?
I mean, he's probably got his communicator on.
He's just that good at like ninjing that he can drop from any ceiling.
How did he operate the transporter himself?
Right. Without anyone noticing.
Are you even able to transport onto the artifact? Do they not have any shield
There's
systems?
a limited amount of transporter space where you could actually transport. Now, is that just like a request, like please be in here, or do they have some kind of? Because we know there's all kinds of transporter inhibitors, to deliberately block transporter effects, but there's also all kinds of passive shit, like you know, strong sources of energy or signal interference.
If you're
or
in the
shielding,
wrong nebula,
you know, certain, like, it's hard to beam through X amount of rock or metal or like, so I don't know. And none of the writers in this show know either.
They didn't explain it because they wanted it to be a surprise when he shows up.
They want to be super fucking cool for, And it
was pretty cool.
Like, I like seeing Elnor go. In fact, I was annoyed at how they ended the episode. I feel like although it's a good chance that we're going to start the next episode with like a 3.5 minute extended fight scene. So.
I watched 2 episodes of Voyager yesterday.
Oh my God. Are you okay?
Man.
How much radiation do you have in you right now?
They weren't awful. They weren't great.
Uh-huh.
They were somewhere in the middle.
That's
so
Voyager.
This spatial trajector, the Sicarians that they mention, are from an episode of Voyager. They meet them and they've got this technology that could get them halfway home.
Sure.
And the Sicarians, they don't want to give it up. Like one of their sort of prime
they have
directives.
this directive. It's one of their most important ones.
That's absolutely what it is. 100%.
I bet Janeway respected that, didn't she?
Yes.
She did?
She absolutely did. The one who didn't was Tuvok, that motherfucker.
It's just not
motherfucking
logical.
Tuvok, yeah. So they try and steal the technology because they don't want to give it to him. Ultimately, they realize they actually couldn't have ever used it because it's not compatible with Federation tech. So It was pointless. But that is an episode called Prime Factors. It's season 1, episode 9 or 10, depending on where you look.
You love seeing the Prime Directive getting shoved into Federation's face.
You do.
Oh, we'd love to help you.
I actually liked that aspect.
This isn't. It's not your natural course of development. Who knows what effects it'll have? Yeah.
This is obviously not the last we'll see of Elnor, right? Like he's left. He's abandoned on this cube to fight essentially an unlimited stream of Romulans.
That's the other thing is. So the reason he's staying there is so Hugh can shut down the Queen Cell that only he knew about and deactivate it. And this is like the room of requirement in Harry Potter. To get the shit all shut down, to get all the paintings hung over the doorways so that no one knows where it's at. And Elnor is covering for that. But what Elnor's not doing is covering for like himself and Hugh. Like they've already killed a shit ton of Romulan security guards. I don't see how Hugh gets out of this situation. I do see how Elnor probably can. Like they're gonna have some bullshit reason for him to be able to get off the ship, unless you think he's just done.
No, I think he's gonna fight his way through. He's gonna probably make it back to the Rio ship.
No, and I think they have an arc for him planned. Like he's going to learn he's going to go through a period of real disillusionment, but then he's going to learn how to lie properly.
And he just won't be able to stop lying.
Then he won't, yeah.
For episodes, it'll just be lie after lie.
Yeah, he'll go full native Romulan and start
he'll make his true name.
He'll make his true name. Yeah. Yep, his ineffable name, and he'll go from there. But I feel like Hugh. He's got an expiration date now. I don't see how he talks his way off of this.
Well, he needs to go with him. He needs to use that spatial projector and just get the fuck out.
I don't know why not. Like having another ex-Borg as part of the crew would be super cool, and he's got no place else to go. Like, although, man, it sucks that he's doing he's really going all in on the hey, wouldn't it be nice to have Picard be an advocate for the Borg thing? I mean, I don't know if you just looked at the news and Picard hasn't advocated for shit in the last 14 years. It's not his thing, but because it seems like the Borg rely on him to get any of their rights respected, to be treated as people on this installation. So him going all in to help Picard is probably going to doom or immiserate a lot of these XBs.
Yeah, could be right.
Yeah,
but that's it. Can also throw a PS in here. Voyager looks like garbage on CBS All Access through Prime.
Is it just
I don't think they've up-resed it, yeah.
Oh, man. That's too bad.
Yeah. I went from Next Generation where they've redone everything in that.
Yeah, they went to the original 35 millimeter.
Yeah. Voyager, they have not done that.
Which is interesting because have you seen what I'm talking about? Some of those props are just carved blocks of wood.
Yeah.
With gold spray paint on it. It's they were never meant to be seen in 1080p for sure.
Yeah.
For sure, but that's a shame. That's a shame. Do they have all the Star Trek: The Next Generation on CBS?
They do,
and it's the 35 millimeter Netflix copies. Interesting.
Man, Star Trek: The Next Generation, not a great show in season 1. I know we all talk about it, but it's a real stark difference because I started in season 3, and I watched through the end of season 7, and then I went back and I started Encounter at Farpoint.
Wow. Yeah.
And the dissonance between very end of the series budget and beginning pilot budget is night and day.
Yeah, and
it's crazy.
It's not just in the storytelling; it's also in the costuming, the hair and makeup. Yeah, everything is. I don't know. They spent a lot of money. They spent a lot of money at Industrial Light and Magic to separate that saucer.
They sure did.
Yeah, they must have. They must have. Shall we consider some subspace transmissions?
Yeah, let's do it.
Jim. All right, you can send those into Picard@baldmove.com. First up, Wayne. We're really going to get to the bottom of this Counselor Troy and her command abilities.
Oh, for the third week in a row?
Rolled up our sleeves. Wayne has done the work.
I guarantee I'm going to have more questions that need answering at the end.
Especially since you've you plowed through another 3 seasons of Star Trek.
I did. I just saw her, and I went back to the beginning, and I saw her in the miniskirt.
The lady wanted us to watch Voyager. She got a leg to stand on because you've watched all of the Next Generation in 1 week.
It's true.
So
but now I have Westworld to watch. I've got Altered Carbon, and Devs is coming out, and I got 15 shows to watch.
Wayne sent in to Picard@baldmove.com. Just want to clear up some of the rank uniform questions regarding Counselor Troy that you've been discussing the past 2 weeks. And the TNG Season 5 episode titled Disaster, the Enterprise bridge is cut off from the rest of the ship with only Troy, Ro Laren, and Chief O'Brien available to make decisions to save the ship. What was our Ro Lyron podcast name? Talking Lyron. What was it? Shit. It was a good one. Anyway. I'd see that's the thing. Like, there's no name too stupid for Star Trek show because you will get the reference in there eventually, organically. Like, what was this, episode 6? And we already got someone unbidden talking about Ro Lyron. Anyway, so you got Troy, Ro Lyron, and Chief O'Brien available to make decisions to save the ship. Oh, boy. O'Brien states that Troy has the authority to take command of the ship because she technically holds the rank of lieutenant commander.
This is the one where Picard's crawling through the turbolift shafts with the kids, right?
It's gotta be, right? I also would I wish I had just seen that scene because I want to see how heavily O'Brien weighted the word technically. Like, did he be like, technically you're a lieutenant commander, and she just ran with it? She's like, I'm a lieutenant commander? Or is he just like, Anyway, following this in season 6.
Whose uniform did she get?
She wears that blue one, right?
She wasn't in uniform in the disaster episode, right? Certainly not.
No.
Okay.
She was in a unitard. Following this in season 6, when the lovable Captain Jellicoe briefly takes command of the Enterprise, he requested that Troy start wearing a standard uniform as he preferred a more formal environment on his bridge.
Lovable. That's as ironically said as it gets.
Yeah. For the most part, she remained wearing the standard uniform for the rest of the series. Later in season 7, the episode Thine Own Self, Troy decides that she wants to become a full-fledged bridge officer after her experience in disaster. Dr. Crusher also has the rank of commander and enjoyed sitting in the captain's chair for the occasional night shift. This helped convince Troy to decide to take her command test. As he pointed out in the podcast,
the Kobayashi murder you test.
Yep, and guess who got murdered in this one? Geordi.
Yep.
Yeah, she has to order him to essentially do the Spock from Wrath of Khan. You got to walk into the reactor room and flip the dilithium crystals with your bare hands. Geordi's going to kill you. Got to be the chief engineer too. Can't be some fucking yeah, you want the most important person on the ship to do this needed repair. So I don't know. I'd probably failed the test because I'd have sent one of the red shirt ensigns in and kept the command guy. But he also has one other clarification regarding 7 of 9. I stopped watching Voyager before she became part of the cast. But I've heard someone else mention that an episode of Voyager showed that her Borg implants allowed her to retain her personal shielding seen with most of the Borg, which may explain her Terminator-like approach to the combat situation. In that case,
really,
break out another $20,000 and have her absorb a phaser rifle because I want to see it. I want to see if 14 years later she's still got her shield implants and are optional.
Where does the energy to run those come from?
She eats 50,000 calories a day.
She would have to.
She takes 4 dozen eggs into a blender and just takes a funnel and just pours it in. She drinks kerosene.
I mean,
it's the only
she
thing.
Just needs calories. Why is she drinking raw eggs?
I don't know. What's the most calorie dense food?
Cheetos. I mean, fats are the most calorie dense.
There you go. She drinks 5 gallons of peanut oil every day.
Olive oil, just guzzles it.
That's the only way. It's the only way she can maintain that kind of energy. Paul, you guys are doing a truly great job of balancing the comically bad parts of Picard with your nostalgic optimism. Why, thank you. We all know that this show didn't have the history and sentimentality of the Star Trek brand. We would have thrown it into the trash bin of corny TV immediately after the Romulan forensic scene. So bad. But like true podcast soldiers, you carry on. That being said, I can't help but wonder what big secret they're planning to lay on us at season's end. Last week you tried to break down the time travel, Romulan, Borg theories, but I have one that's much, much simpler and lies at the heart of the show. The show's name, Picard, isn't referencing Jean-Luc, but rather his daughter, Soji. So much of JL's lore revolves around... Hey, look, we're not going to start doing this shit in the feedback. It's Jean-Luc. This JL stuff's out of here. So much of Jean-Luc's lore revolves around him losing his family and his family name dying with him. So if Soji is his daughter, we can not only carry on the name Picard, but because the show can also continue on without Patrick Stewart. That's something you got to think about.
Absolutely, the man's old.
He's in his late 70s. He's in advanced years.
Looks pretty healthy, but
looks pretty good.
He's old.
He actually, what's weird is this show makes him look older than he actually is. Like I watched a Comic Con. I watched him in a Comic Con panel a couple days ago, and he's very animated and spry, and his voice sounds stronger. Like I wonder if they're actually having him play up this Uramanji syndrome or something. Because a couple times...
Jumanji syndrome.
What is it?
Jumanji syndrome.
Jumanji syndrome, yeah. That's where Robin Williams and a bunch of chimpanzees runs through the ship.
Yeah.
But because his voice sounds kind of weak and reedy in a couple of these places. Like
and it cracks at one point in this episode, which is not something you're accustomed to hearing.
Yeah,
from Picard.
when he's telling like Hugh, "There's no time."
Yeah.
So I don't know, because like when I see him talk outside of the show, he seems very animated and strong.
Man, that'd be unfortunate if that's a character affectation. Because I think that's getting in the way of the performance.
Yeah.
A lot, but
could be. So what do you think about Soji being his adoptive daughter, so she can be Soji Picard, and then Picard?
I thought they already explained the origins of Soji and Daj, right?
Well, I mean, it's not literally going to be his daughters, obviously, but like adopted. You could adopt people, and they get your last name, and
okay. I mean, yeah, but that doesn't have to be true of Soji. It could be true of literally anyone. Hugh could be adopted, right? And like,
well, but I mean, yes, but in the framework of this show and the characters you have available, he could adopt Elnor and Soji. Boom. Yeah. Brother and sister.
Right.
Heals the Romulans. Heals the rift simultaneously between the Romulans and the Federation, and the Synths and the Federation. Mm-hmm. There you go. That's the theory. You need the bouncing baby Romulan boy in there too, with the android girl. But I think that, that's something that we were kind of seriously worried about at the start of the season, that this would be, there's a rumor going around that they were going to the new ship would be called the USS Picard.
Oh, right, yeah.
So then Patrick Stewart could only be in the very beginning of it, maybe even the first season, and just hand off, and it was going to be, and they didn't do that, which is good.
Still possible. If we can kill Rios, and Picard can take over as captain, the true captain of the ship. He can rename it.
Yeah, or if Picard dies and they
rename
a bottle of champagne, the La Serena to Picard in recognition.
Oh yeah.
There is this possibility, or have him adopt. It doesn't even have to be in like a real Starfleet Records paperwork kind of way. He can just be like, I always considered you my daughter, and die.
Maybe they try and teleport the entire ship through like a spatial trajectory. And there ends up as another copy of the ship with a goatee. And that can be the Picard. Or that could be the Rios.
That'd be called the USS Tom Riker, I think.
Yeah.
I will say this. My interest in watching the show would plummet precipitously if they wrote Picard out of the show.
Yeah.
Now,
agree.
If Patrick Stewart dies through natural causes, and I would watch another season just to see if they can turn that really sharp corner.
Yeah.
But if they just write him out because they wanted to bait me into watching new Trek, Amulet Trek, it's not gonna work. It's not gonna work.
It'd be the same speed at which I canceled season 2 of Discovery. My all access for that.
What if they write out Picard, but they bring in Johnny Franks?
They go full Riker.
They go full Riker, baby.
I might accept a full Riker here.
I could see
a pivot.
Yeah, I could see Riker come out of retirement to carry on this quest against the Zhat Vash. That'd be kind of cool.
Could we call whatever form this takes, with Patrick Stewart exiting and the show continuing, the Picard maneuver? Yeah. Could we call that the Picard maneuver from now on?
Yeah, it's either that or like Pexit or something,
Yes. Pexit.
Picard exit. All right, let's move on to Shields. Shields up. Please add my voice to the chorus that is taken aback that neither of you watched Voyager to its completion prior to Picard.
Only 100 hours. Only 100 plus hours.
Right. And also, we planned on not doing Picard because we just assumed it was going to be a joke exercise series. And then,
after Discovery, yeah.
Yeah, then we got talked into it by, like, a lot of people saying it's good. Yeah. And it's, like I said, I think it's so far better than Disco. But it's actually pretty good, and I dare say top 2 or 3 Star Trek series. Okay, Shields, buddy, Shields.
The top of Star Trek stops at 3.
Yeah, like
you can't make a list any longer than that.
Like if you said 3, I might, because some people's taste, you can't appreciate the old 70s shit. I love the old series because that was my Star Trek. That's what I watched on my dad's lap on Sunday mornings, and it's like my first experience of Trek. That and the movies. So I like it. I think that's in the top 3. You got Trek, you got TNG, and you got Deep Space Nine. But top 2, come on. It's better than Deep Space Nine, really? Because there's no fucking way it's better than TNG.
No, my top 3 in order from 1 to 3 is Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, original series.
Sure.
And the fact that Voyager falls outside of that top 3, there's a big demarcation between the top 3 and number 4. And there are only like 2 others. Like, you got Enterprise and Discovery, and now Picard. Like, the list isn't very long, so to say that it's in the top 50th percentile is like, okay, fine. TNG is not the most amazing show in the world either, but I love it.
And this is a pretty outside opinion. This is kind of like waltzing into a Fast and Furious conversation and be like, I think arguably Tokyo Drift is in like the top 6. Come on, that's an outlier opinion, Mr. or Mrs. Shields.
I will say that Voyager, to its credit, feels so much more like Star Trek to me than anything that came after it.
That's true.
Enterprise doesn't feel like Star Trek to me. Discovery definitely doesn't. This doesn't really. Like, Voyager had that Star Trek essence.
Yeah, going into the unknown.
Yeah, so it's not going to be that bad.
Yeah,
but like it's 140 hours of television to get through Voyager. There's no fucking way I was going to watch that much Voyager.
I kind of want to, eventually.
I don't like the characters. What it comes down to is Tom Paris is a nothing of a character. The only characters that I like are like Chakotay and Janeway, or sorry, not Chakotay, Tuvok and Janeway, and then the rest of them are just like, to okay.
I like the Klingon engineer lady,
Milana Torres.
Yeah, I thought she was pretty cool.
I don't remember enough of her
and the
storyline to really remember.
The EMS,
the Doctor I like.
I think 7 and 9's got like.
I stopped watching before she got really going.
That's the thing. It's like, like I guess the thing is I'm friends with a guy who runs a YouTube channel that got prominence by dismantling Star Trek Voyager. So it's like, I don't know. It's a tough sell. Voyager's a tough sell on me. I was at the height of my Trek fandom and I turned it off at the end of season 2.
Yeah.
That's
same here.
Like none of the other Star Treks did that to me. So
you get the Captain Proton episode. You got that Once Upon a Time episode that I watched, which is large portions of that are bullshit.
See, let's move on to John. I don't know how the writing assignments work on this show, but whoever is writing the stuff like this week's beautiful scenes between Hugh and Picard needs to write more of them. Picard at the end of his life reflecting on what he stood for and what he's done and where he is now. That's the part of the show that really works. This was felt in the opening scenes of episode 1 and that beautiful scene with Data. The same is true of this scene last week when Picard sighs at 7's second question about regaining all of his humanity.
Yeah.
This is what I want out of Star Trek Picard. I want it to be focused on these types of reflections. Yes, he's had 30 years that we haven't seen, and he's a different man today, which is fine, because of course he is. No full human being wouldn't change over time. But these thoughtful scenes where we connect the threads between this Picard and that one should really be the backbone of all of their narratives here. When we see Hugh and we see the love he has for this man who saved him from hell, that's important. When Picard has a realization that this is the true nature of the Borg, they are this monstrous force of unyielding domination, but really these cubes are giant cages of victims. That stuff is the good stuff, and they need more of it. The cartoony, mustache-twirling villains and playing dress-up on casino planets, the modern dialogue and discordant dives into after-school special territory that I've come to expect from Kurtzman and company be much easier to deal with and would fade gently into the background if only they would provide more of this good Picard stuff, where he's reflective and thoughtful and actually Picard, not a weird, patchy, uneven version of the man we all know from 7 series of a TV show and 4 movies.
Yeah.
I broadly agree.
Yep.
Like, they just need to give him some good dialogue and let Picard be Picard. And it's, I don't know, but the thing is that's an art. Like having a good showrunner and a good stable of writers is the foundation of every fucking TV show that I think is great that I've ever seen. Yeah. I've seen lots of examples where things look great and the acting is amazing and the story writing is garbage and it's like cover your eyes bad. And I've seen lots of examples where you have a bunch of no names that haven't acted they haven't acted in anything before, where maybe the set design is cheaper and stuff, but they're amazingly written and you don't remember all of the rough patches. And I don't understand why like CBS doesn't spend, like, it can't be that hard. It can't be that hard to find writers that are nostalgic that grew up watching TNG. Like, you should be able to swing a stick in Hollywood and hit 10 of them.
You do, for sure.
So, like, you might have to pay, you know, instead of like running a writer's room for $1 million, you might have to run it for $5 million. And you might have to do one less sock sliding scene in the Borg cube, but it's a trade-off I'm willing to make. Dominic, I have to agree that The Expanse is a fundamentally superior science fiction show to not only New Trek, but nearly every other entry unto space. I watched both Picard and Discovery, and while I enjoy a lot of the character work in Discovery, the second season, as a plot, indecipherable mess. I feel like Abrams and company just decided only the original Star Trek was any good, and to just be that, relentless and brazen. And they are wrong to think all Trekkers would agree with that. And on top of it, it seems like they only care for movie Trek and not so much the series. I don't know where to put the blame because, well, in part, the new gen of Star Trek or the 90s lost its way. Deep Space Nine was great, but Voyager, some of those episodes are near unwatchable. I mean, all Trek that I'm aware of has near unwatchable episodes. I'll take your word for it that they came faster and more furious in Voyager. I'm sympathetic to that view, but just want to point that out that they're not all great, mostly because they're a retake or rehash of something from the same writers had already done in TNG or Deep Space Nine. Now that feels like a lot of the plots that I have been reading that are like foundational for understanding these Picard plots seem like they are rehashes of things they already did on TNG.
Right. I mentioned how that the
bioweapon
Icheb is essentially the same as Hugh, right? It's just done in Voyager, so that's the reference.
Just wanted to rant. I just wanted to rant because I'm feeling at this point that JJ has not only nearly ruined Star Trek, but also Star Wars, and why I feel like Picard and Discovery are better than the new old crew movies. They're just all okay. I'm not even a purist. I'm looking for new Trek, but all I'm getting is old Trek. I find myself thinking on The Expanse most of the time, promoting it through word of mouth wherever I can, and hoping that Amazon changes its publishing tactic to go to a weekly format. Certainly deserves to get a bit more of the spotlight with science fiction being so big right now. Here's hoping. I hope too. I hope so too. I heard in an interview that Bezos said that he was happy with the way the season of Expanse went.
I mean, that's good on one hand and bad on the other.
Yeah.
Because it means they're probably not going to change up the business model, but there will be future seasons.
Yeah, I just really hope it doesn't drop at midnight on December 24th next year. Because if we had any kind of room to maneuver at all, I would love to give it full series coverage. It's amazing.
Yeah, I agree with the emailer here. I think it's the best piece of science fiction that's been done on television in a decade. Like Battlestar Galactica is the last thing I can think of where I got this into a sci-fi series.
But
the remake, obviously.
I do agree. I think that, I don't know, maybe it's true that you Star Trek'd out Star Trek for a while. That you had a series that, was built on like tackling a bunch of societal questions. It waited for 20 years, had some movie success. Then you bring back The Next Generation as a syndicated show, and you do 7 seasons of that, and you essentially tell every story you can possibly tell in space. And then Deep Space Nine had to have a new angle.
That's the thing. At the same time, you were also like, all of these shows sort of halfway overlap. Like Deep Space Nine sort of overlapped TNG and Voyager on Deep Space Nine, and like there was this constant churn of Star Trek that I think could have Star Trek.
And Voyager, like all these make sense, and Voyager is a reaction to that. Like you got to get Voyager away from the Alpha Quadrant so it can plausibly have these these experiences all.
It's a really strong premise, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a very strong premise. But I've been trying to argue that we're ready for another just classic Trek. We're ready for a Chuck Wagon to the Stars type of thing. A competent crew of really well fleshed out personalities that will slowly establish a relationship. You don't even have to have these plot lines going into the series. You just need to have strong archetypal characters that say something about the human condition, throw them together for a couple seasons and see what comes out of it, you know? And have them explore the universe and have them find thinly veiled allegories to things that we're constantly going through right now. Because, like I said, I thought when we got out of the 90s and into the 2000s, I thought like we are on pace to avoid the eugenics wars of the 21st century. Boy, we're going to have a head start on the Star Trek utopia. Not so much anymore. Seems like we're struggling with things like warlords and complex Middle Eastern politics and people with delusions of grandeur in parts of Europe and
so many new things, right? Like the idea that information isn't quite what it was before, right? Like where do you get your information? How reliable is it? All of those things could be explored in a new Star Trek. And like the interesting thing to me is I watched The Ready Room this week for this episode, and they had Jerry Ryan on, who wasn't on this week's episode, but talking about last. But then they had Rod Roddenberry on.
His son.
Gene Roddenberry's son, who is an executive producer on the show. And he was speaking my language. He he understood Star Trek in the exact same way I understand Star Trek.
Yeah.
And I just don't see that influence being exerted strongly enough on new Trek. It seems to me that the blame here lies with Paramount.
Yeah.
Not necessarily with any of the people writing the thing. Paramount has just said, this is what Star Trek is to us now.
Yeah.
And they haven't listened to the people who, in my opinion, made Star Trek such a success before.
And there's a danger, I think, to listening to Roddenberry's vision a little too close, because a lot of what's wrong with the first few seasons of Star Trek: The Next Generation is him really, putting the ham-fisted, really banging those keys hard on some of some of the premises are just really dumb and dopey.
Yeah.
Because Star Trek, the original series, had a lot of premises that were dumb and dopey. And like having a little bit of darkness and a little bit of grim reality and a little bit of, the sheen scrubbed off of Star Trek's not a bad thing, but I think they've gone way too far. Yeah. Way too far into grim darkness, and they need to course correct. Need to find a way to, what was that for the super teleporter technology?
Yeah, the spatial trajectory.
They need a spatial trajector themselves into a new track.
I mean, certainly as a almost 40-year-old Star Trek fan, that's how I feel.
Yeah.
I got to imagine kids that grew up watching J.J. Abrams' Star Trek probably don't feel that way.
Yeah. It's funny because I'd stopped. This is the first week I didn't watch The Ready Room, because I'd watched the first one. I'm like, oh, it's I'm interested in seeing this. And I started background watching because some of those interviews aren't great with Will Wheaton. I'm sorry. But I'm kind of interested to see what Gene Roddenberry, and I'm hoping they're getting Mr. Frakes themselves, because he's been directing some of these episodes. According to the preview, Riker's going to be in next week. They gotta get Riker.
Yeah, get the Frakes. They had a nice clip of him in the background directing one of the episodes. Like he was just directing the scene where 7 of 9 and Picard meet for the first time, and he just looks over and he's like, I love this job. and you can tell he really does.
It must really feel like, coming home, especially when you get to work with like Jonathan Stewart and Patrick Stewart.
Yeah, he's joined the writer's room.
Yeah, Patrick Stewart had a son, named him after Frakes.
After Jon Stewart, apparently.
Okay, we are going to leave it at that. Picard at baldmove.com is how you can get your thoughts in for consideration. We will be back next week for the 7th episode of Star Trek Picard. Until then, I'm your host, A.Ron.
And I'm Jim.
See ya.